All right, Darksiders. So I hope that you are excited because not only are we going to talk about my favorite movie genre of all times, we also have our first Dark Side movie reviews giveaway. So you better make sure you watch this video and stay to the end because I'm going to give you some details about something that I think that you will really appreciate. Now, let's get into it. All right, Darksiders. So today, you guys, we are talking about my favorite genre of movie, which is fantasy movies. I've been a big fan of them ever since I've been a kid. Yes, I do love superhero movies, as you guys can probably tell by a lot of the t-shirts that I wear. I'm also a big fan of action adventure movies, but nothing compares to a good fantasy movie to me. By far, my favorite movie is the trilogy for Lord of the Rings of all time. I love everything about that film. But today, you guys, I want to take a walk and I want to invite you to come with me down memory lane where we talk the 1981 Clash of the Titans, the British American film that starred Laurence Olivier, Meredith Burgess, Harry Hamlin, and I always forget the actress' name that played Andromeda in that movie, but if you know who it is, please help me out and put it in the comments below. But I loved everything about Clash of the Titans, even though it does pale in comparison visually to some of the movies that we have today. So that's what we're going to get into today, you guys. Listen, if you're new here, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And guys, please comment because I'd love to know what your favorite fantasy movie is. Let's get into Clash of the Titans, which to me is just a fantasy staple. Now, I know that some of you guys might not classify Clash of the Titans within the fantasy genre, and actually the fantasy genre is so broad. You know, the other day I saw a list and it had The Dark Knight in the fantasy genre, so I guess a lot of things could be included in that. But definitely for me, Clash of the Titans is within that field, and I really love the 1981 version. And I think the biggest thing for me was being able to see a Greek mythological tale actually brought to life on the big screen. And I know it's not the first time we saw it. I know that Harryhausen, who has done a lot of the stop motion work on the original Clash of the Titans, also did some of that work, I believe, in Jason and the Argonauts, which came out, I think it was in 1963. But I was just blown away by the impact of Clash of the Titans. To see such an epic tale told in such a grand and epic way was just amazing for me to see. And it's really interesting when you think about the visual impact and scope and feel of the 1981 Clash of the Titans. It really is amazing that it came across as it did, because let's think about how that movie was made. When you think about the story is pretty simple. Even the execution of the acting in the movie is pretty simple. The execution of the cinematography in the movie is pretty simple, meaning that we didn't have what we have today with all the different camera angles and the cuts and all that kind of good stuff. I'm not even talking about the CGI. I'm just talking about all of the different camera angles and the different views and all that kind of good stuff that really does help to heighten the emotional investment that we have in a lot of movies. You didn't have that in Clash of the Titans. It was a fairly straightforward shoot in that movie, but still it managed to come across as something very impactful and very epic to the viewer, something that we all remember. Like I remember how I felt when we saw the Kraken come out of the water. I remember that. And yes, I do know that the Kraken was actually Norse mythology, not Greek. And I've always wondered, as a matter of fact, maybe you can answer this for me. I've always wondered why they did not use the creature in Greek mythology for this and they used the Kraken. If you know the answer to that, please put that in the comments, because I would love to know why that is, because I have no idea. And it's always something that's been kind of on my mind. But I remember how I felt when I saw that. I remember how I felt when Perseus meets the Stygian witches and the whole thing, the eye, give us the eye. I remember all of that. I remember how I felt when he had the encounter with Cerberus. I remember how I felt when I saw the boatman that took him across the river Styx, the encounter with the satyr. All of that was just amazing to me. As a kid, it was just like, wow, all the stuff that I read about, I'm actually seeing on screen. So I think that the value of a movie like Clash of the Titans really is better in a lot of nostalgia for me, and that's why I love the movie so much. As a matter of fact, it was so funny because visually the 2010 version was just visually a much better film, kind of. It's interesting because even though the visual production of the 2010 version was much more dynamic. Of course, it was using CGI. It still felt like it was not right, and maybe this resonates with you. Like when you're watching it, I feel like, oh man, I mean, yeah, it looks great, but this is not. No, this is not Clash of the Titans. This is not Clash of the Titans. And I think in a very real way, for those of us who have experienced the original, we're kind of married even to the visual impact of that film, even though it was using stop motion. Ray Harryhausen did the stop motion in that, and you guys probably know him from the 1963 film Jason and the Argonauts. He worked on that as well, and I think he also worked on Jack the Giant Killer also, which came out a few years after that. So there was something about that stop motion that really made the film, that gave the film kind of a gravitas that I don't think it would have had without it actually being stop motion. I think the stop motion is actually part of what makes Clash of the Titans such an impactful film for those of us that saw it. Now, here's an interesting thing, because I've often wondered why they went the route of stop motion, especially when you had a movie like Star Wars that came out a few years before that, 1977, in which the visual effects were much grander, they were much more believable, they were smoother, and maybe stop motion was used in Star Wars. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that it was in some aspects, but it was much more of a visual spectacle than a movie that came out years after it. At first, I thought it was a budget issue. I thought that maybe Star Wars just had a bigger budget and they could afford to do more visually. But then I found out that Star Wars had a budget of, I believe, $11 million, which was a lot of money in 1977. But in 81, Clash of the Titans had a budget of $13 million. So I don't think it was a budget issue. I'm almost wondering if that selection or the ways that they chose to shoot that was really kind of in line with the feel and tone that they wanted to go along with the mythology. And if that's the case, I think that it works, because the later version, the 2010 version, does not have the same feel and tone as the original version. So I loved everything about it, even though the acting was very simplistic, and some people say, well, the characters weren't very fleshed out. Well, it wasn't a problem for me, because I knew what I was watching. We knew that we were watching the story of Perseus. I knew anyway. Maybe you saw it and you didn't. If you weren't into Greek mythology, you didn't know. So I kind of knew what the narrative was. I knew how it was going to play out for the most part. So I didn't need a lot of character development. And then that's my point, that this film was really, really enjoyable, and it didn't have some of the aspects that we have in movies today, where there is a lot more character development, in most movies anyway, where we do have the rotating camera angles and all of these kind of different dynamic shots, and we're weaving in CGI to really make for a very dynamic visual experience. This film was pretty straightforward in the way that it was shot. It was pretty straightforward in the way that it was acted. It was pretty straightforward in the way that it was designed, but it still had such a huge impact for those of us who loved it. So definitely, you guys, on my list would have to be Clash of the Titans. I really, really enjoyed that movie. One of my favorite fantasy movies of all time. And even to this day, I still can sit down and watch that movie, even though it's not visually what we've just seen in the past couple of years with a lot of the different fantasy movies that are coming out. So what are your thoughts on the original Clash of the Titans, the 81 Clash of the Titans? You guys already know right now that I really love the movie, and I know that the movie has a large fan base, but I want to know what your favorite sci-fi movie is. And I took it back. I took us back down memory lane. You don't have to go that far back. It could be something very recent. So comment below and just let me know kind of some of the things that you really loved, whether they be new or old. I'm dying to know what you thought, and I'd like to get some conversation going on around that. So next week, either Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to try and do it on Wednesday, because I like to do these fantasy reviews on Wednesday. We're actually going to cover Kroll, the 1983 kind of sci-fi fantasy movie, which again was another one of my childhood favorites, and a lot of people actually had that movie on their top 10 list as well. So we're going to get into that next week. Guys, it's time to talk about our first official giveaway. So I thought to myself, what can I give you guys that hopefully you'll find some value in and that you'll be able to have some fun with? So here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to have two winners for our giveaway, and we're going to give away two $50 Visa gift cards. Now here's the idea behind the gift cards. It is really for you to grab whomever you want and to have movies for two and popcorn on us. There's a lot of good stuff coming out, you guys. We've got Thor Ragnarok coming out in November. We've got Justice League, a lot of other things coming out. If you wanted to wait, you can wait and use them to see Black Panther in February. So you guys have some choices there. So we're really excited to have a giveaway like this for you. And basically you have to be subscribed to the channel to be able to enter. And the next step is just to click the link in the description and it'll tell you what you need to do to enter the competition, or the, well, it's not really a competition because you don't have to do anything, or the giveaway. And then that's it, you guys. So make sure that you do that. Guys, there should be some other videos popping up. I don't know where I'm going to place them yet. Somewhere around the other latest videos I've done. So guys, thank you so much and good luck on the giveaway. And I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.